Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, the Education Coordinator for Marlene's Market and Deli. Tonight's special guest that we have with us is Jodi Williams. She is accredited financial counselor and is speaking on the topic of cleaning up your finances. Thank you so much, Jodi, for being here with us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, Elizabeth. So without further ado, I will get started. Give me just a second. Let me share my screen. All right. So as Elizabeth said, tonight's topic is cleaning up your finances, how to get organized to be able to relieve stress. I'm an accredited financial counselor, and I take a very holistic view of finances. So something that is very important to me is how are your finances affecting your overall well-being and your health? Because finances can cause a lot of stress for people. And so the more we can do to make finances easy and to simplify, the better your well-being can be by really getting rid of that stress. All right. So what are we going to talk about tonight? So a few different things. We're going to talk about organizing and cleaning up financial paperwork, organizing accounts and online finances, and then last but not least, talking about knowing where you stand with your finances, because knowing where you stand can really help, reduce the clutter and clean things up as well, not just like physically cleaning up our spaces. And then we'll have Q&A at the end. If you have questions as we go, you can go ahead and type them in the chat, and then I'll go through and answer at the end. Okay, so it's National Cleaning Week, and a lot of people ask, why should I organize and clean up my finances? Well, a few reasons is peace of mind and being able to reduce stress, as I just mentioned, reducing burden on others. And what I mean by that is if we have a lot of clutter around our finances, and we have information on our finances in a lot of different places and spaces, and something happens to us and somebody else needs to step in to help either pay our stuff, or God forbid, if we pass away and somebody needs to come in and take over, the more simple things are and the more consolidated things are, the more it helps out your loved ones to be able to kind of take over. So simplifying things, freeing up space. So if we have a lot of financial paperwork that's taking up space in our homes, we can free up space by cleaning, decluttering our environment, both physical and mental, knowing our financial status, which is really important, as I said, and reducing the fear of the unknown. So oftentimes I see people who have financial paperwork that's strewn about their homes in different places. They don't really know what's going on with their finances. And so part of that is because they have a fear of, what's really going on with my finances. So really getting our finances under control, getting a grasp, consolidating, putting them together reduces that fear, because even if knowing the outcome is scary, at least we have a place to start from. To be able to fix things once we know where things are. All right, well, so we'll start out talking about organizing our financial paperwork. So as I said, oftentimes I know people have financial paperwork in many different places in their house, stacks here and there. Maybe they have some stuff in a like a filing cabinet, sometimes on a desk, sometimes on the kitchen counter. So what I say for that, like if you have different stacks of paperwork in multiple places, the best thing you can do is to set a time when you can focus on the task of getting organized. And, for a lot of people who work, that means maybe carving out a Saturday or a Sunday to really hone in on being focused on doing nothing but, getting the finances under control. So next thing, what I would say is get all your paperwork, gather it all together from all the different places, and then start sorting everything into piles. So this is the best way to really organize paperwork, sort into different piles. So bills, investment stuff, insurance documents, taxes, any other kind of financial paperwork you might have, put them in separate stacks. And then also make a stack for garbage and for shredding or burning, being able to remove the paperwork that may have sensitive information on it. So once you've got that done and you've got everything organized into, however many piles that you need, the next thing to do would be to take action on that. So if you have a stack that's bills, your action, of course, on that would be to pay them or put them in a spot where you're gonna, get to them very soon. Maybe it's not quite time to pay the bills yet, and you're gonna wait a week or two. Put those aside, but put those in a spot to be able to take action and pay. Go ahead and file the things that need to be filed. And what I recommend on that is, getting a filing cabinet, or if maybe a filing cabinet doesn't work, getting like those accordion folder things that you can buy at the office supply store. Sometimes you can get them at the grocery store. Those are a great way to be able to file and sort paperwork and keep it in a small space. So one of those you could just throw in a closet or something, where everything's at without taking up a lot of room. And then next, any documents that you might need to keep for safekeeping, insurance documents, insurance policies, that sort of thing. Get a fireproof safe or open up a safe deposit box. But you definitely want a safe place where you could put documents that normal people wouldn't have access to, and then are safe, of course, if some kind of tragedy happens and your house burned down, or like if you live somewhere where they have flooding and hurricanes or something like that, that it's in a safe space. Next up, I would say to set up a system for the future incoming paperwork. So after you've done all this action, you've sorted things, taken a lot of time to get organized, you want a system for the future so that when more stuff comes in, you know how to handle it, and the piles don't start adding up again. So this is just kind of a cool flow chart that I found online that I wanted to share. You can take a screenshot or something, but it kind of is a great way to walk you through what to do with different kinds of paperwork. And this talks about paperwork that isn't just finances, but it gives you a good idea. So for example, is it something you need or want to keep? Yes. Okay. Does it require action? Yes or no? And then you follow the flow chart. It'll tell you maybe what you should be doing with that paperwork. If it's not something that you need to keep, okay, well, then maybe it's cluttered and maybe you need to throw it away or shred it or something. So take a screenshot or a picture of that if that's something that interests you and you want to use. I'm not going to read through all the boxes, but it can be helpful. All right, as I said, have a system. So a good system would be, as future paperwork comes into the home, having a folder or a tray, a basket, some sort of physical place where you can put paperwork. And you can have several different ones. So some good categories to sort into would be things that you need to pay, things that you need to read, and then things that need some other action taken on them. What I really like are those filing tray systems that you can get again at office supply stores. You can put it on a desk in an office, or maybe on the corner of a kitchen counter, or I don't know, tucked away in a closet somewhere where it can be neat. But then what you do is just get in the habit, right, of as the paperwork is coming into the home, as you get your mail every day or whatever, you sort into these trays. If it's something that you can't get to or don't need to get to right away, at least you've put it somewhere, it's labeled, and you know what needs to happen to it next. And then the next part of the system is really to set a time, either weekly or monthly, to process everything. So make a plan, make a date with yourself, put it on your calendar, put a reminder on there that says, okay, maybe every Saturday you're going to sit down and go through everything and spend, a short amount of time. Sometimes it might take 10 minutes, sometimes it may take 30, but it's a lot easier to do that on a weekly or monthly basis versus having like an all day thing because you've kind of let things go and build up for a while. Also, ask yourself if you need to be receiving paper copies of things that are coming in. And if not, because people get a lot of unneeded mail, unneeded bank statements, those sort of things could be canceled if you have access to them online. And most financial documents, such as bills, bank statements, they don't necessarily need to be received, right? We can log into our accounts and be able to access those things. Many financial institutions, whether it's banks or creditors, they keep usually at least a year's worth of statements on the servers. So you can access those at any time to make it easy for yourself. If it's something that you want to be keeping on a continual basis, what I recommend is turning off the paper copies, and maybe you just download those, save them on your computer. A folder on your desktop, takes up a whole lot less room than a lot of papers coming into the home. So with this system and kind of with the organization thing that we talked about, I just want to take a second to really talk about protecting your identity, because so much financial paperwork that we get, of course, there's information on there like our names and addresses, but a lot of times there's social security numbers and account numbers. So many people have issues with identity theft. People can dig through garbages. They can, access this information. And so just be very careful as you're sorting and organizing and trying to plan your financial life. Please don't throw anything away with the social security numbers or account numbers. Keep yourself safe. Invest in a small shredder. You can get those fairly inexpensive. You can buy them on Amazon or Walmart, Target, places like that. I think the cheapest one I ever saw was like $25, and one that just fits over a garbage can, and you can literally just shred your documents into a garbage. So those are great. If you're going through a lot of paperwork at once, you're doing this initial kind of overhaul on all the finances and getting rid of all the old things you don't need and cleaning up the house, what I say is take some paper bags and just start filling them with the things that need to be shredded, and then find a local shredding event. So these are amazing. I know LeMay does them, probably some other local places. You can just look up, literally Google shredding event near me. And, they show up at a place with a big truck and they say, okay, we're going to be here, from X time to X time on a Saturday. And you can just take in these bags and they just literally throw in the truck and everything gets shredded. So that can save you a lot of time if you don't want to sit there, shredding things one by one through some of these small shredders, because I know that can take a lot of time. I've done that myself. But once I discovered the shred event, that saves a huge amount of time. So take advantage. All right, moving on to online financial information. So if you are receiving emails on a continual basis with financial information in them, the statement that gets sent out from your credit card or your bank statements. Again, going back to the folder idea to sort things, create those folders in your inbox so that as things come in, you can put them into the folders and then take action on them as needed, setting up that time weekly or monthly to process everything. Another way to sort of organize and consolidate financial information, if you've got a lot of financial apps on your phone or on your computer, make a folder, put everything together. I've seen people and they have, iPhones and they've got like 3 or 4 pages on there, and they, like one account on this page, one account on the second page, and everything's like scattered. And so even just creating like one page on your phone that's got all your financial stuff, or putting it all into a square, if you understand what that means, hopefully you do, that makes it really easy to where you open up just one box and then bam, all your financial accounts are in one place. Save some time, save some mental energy because you don't have to go searching for things. And then here's another great idea. When you have a lot of online accounts, or even things coming into the home that you're going to kind of shred on a regular basis, so that you don't need to keep as much, what you can do is make a list of all the accounts that you have for quick reference. So whether that's like an Excel file on your computer, or you can like manually do this on a piece of paper, or, you know, Word or something like that. But you put your financial vendor, whoever you're paying. So it could be Tacoma Power, it could be your Citibank Visa, your mortgage, your, you know, who knows what other kind of places that you're paying. You make a list of everything with the account numbers, and maybe you put like a website on there, or a mailing address, or a phone number to all these places as well. And this is a really great way, again, so you don't have to keep that statement maybe to reference if you need to contact your creditor or your utility company. You don't have to keep that piece of paper lying around. You've got one piece of paper for everything. Excuse me for a moment. All right, once you've created the list, what I recommend doing, put it in a safe place, whether that's in a safe that somebody else has access to, a safe deposit box. And again, this can come in handy, as I mentioned before, if, God forbid, something terrible happens to you. Your loved ones have one place where they can go. All your information is on there, all your accounts. It's safe from, you know, harm doers, but people who are going to be helping you with your finance, they have quick access, and it makes it so much easier. Just a personal story. When I known a few people who've passed away, and their families are scrambling, trying to like bring information together, and because there's no organization in the home, and they don't know, you know, what their loved one was paying on. And so it just makes it really hard. So if you care about your loved ones, make this list, put it together, and get that in one place, and then tell them where it is so they can find it if something were to happen to you. All right. Another big question people have is what to keep and for how long when you're cleaning up your finances. So tax paperwork, this seems to be the biggest question that I get. Tax paperwork, there's a few different things that go with that. What I would say is the minimum is 3 years. Maximum for some things is forever, but the norm is from 3 to 7 years. And there's a few stipulations, as you'll see on this page. So as this says, like, keep records for 3 years if 4, 5, and 6 below don't apply. So 4, 5, and 6. So keep records for 6 years if you don't report income that you should report, and it's more than 25% of the gross income shown on your return. Keep records indefinitely if you don't file, and keep records indefinitely if you file a fraudulent return. Okay, hopefully none of these apply to anybody here. Everybody's paying their taxes and doing it honestly. And so then you wouldn't have to worry about that. Keeping records for 3 years from the date you filed your original return, or 2 years from the date you pay the tax, whichever is later. So if you file a claim for credit or refund after you filed your return. And then the 7-year rule pretty much applies if you have claimed a loss on your taxes from bad investments. It's important to keep stuff at least that long, because that's the length of time that you can continue to use that loss and like spread it out over several years. And then also keeping employment tax records, as it says here on the bottom, at least 4 years after the date that the tax becomes due or is paid. And all this information you can end up, if you have questions later, if you don't want to screenshot this, if you're not sure how long to keep things, you can always reference the IRS website. Okay, everything else, all other kind of financial documents. So if you're still receiving things and not doing everything, you know, virtually, bank statements only need to be kept for 3 years, unless they're part of that whole tax receipt thing that you need to keep for 7. Brokerage accounts, so any kind of financial investment stuff. What most people do is they'll keep their quarterly statements until they get the yearly statement. Once they get that yearly statement, you can kind of get rid of and shred the quarterly stuff. and then just keep the yearly ones as reference. And that's good to have that on paper so you can kind of see, where or what your investments are doing, where you were at a certain time and how they've grown or lost money. Keep all medical billing statements and prescription receipts for the year in case you have large medical expenses. This is important that people don't think about. They're like, oh, I don't spend that much on medical expenses, I'm not going to itemize anything. But then maybe at the very end of the year, they have some catastrophic event happens that would have enabled them to deduct all of the medical expenses over the year. So that's something that's important to keep throughout the year. Then when the year is over, of course, if that's not the case and you don't need to itemize and deduct anything, you can shred that stuff. Utilities, you don't need to keep those unless you're using that again for your taxes to itemize and write off those expenses. And then things related to property. So if you're doing investments on your home or improvements on your home, excuse me, it's a good idea to keep those, because then if you sell, you can prove that you've put money into it for the capital gains. Okay, how can you reduce the mental energy it takes to track finances? And this is something I want to cover because we want to simplify, and looking at finances holistically, we want finances to not be scary, to not be difficult, because the less scary and difficult, the less stress that they're going to cause. And I kind of liken some of this to somebody who is multitasking, right? If you're trying to do 10 different tasks at once, the energy that you're putting towards each of those things, right, is probably not very much. And I read a statistic that said that only 2.5% of people are good at multitasking. That's a pretty small percentage. So part of the reason that we want to clean things up is to be able to reduce that mental energy of just having cluttered. Like physically, if you have things all over the place and you don't know what's happening with your finances, that can really be a big strain on your mind, your mental capacity to know where things are at. Or just having, for example, a lot of accounts in different places, tracking that and having to remember is like, that can cause a lot of burden on somebody. And so being able to just simplifying things really can ease that stress and make finances easier for somebody. So the first thing in simplifying and making things easier when it comes to your overall finances is consolidating things. So how many banks do you use? How many checking and savings accounts do you have? I'll tell a story. I was working with somebody once, and we were trying to kind of do an inventory and look at what she had, and she was using, or not necessarily using, but she had accounts at 7 different banking institutions. And these weren't investments. They were just like different checking and savings accounts. And so I asked her, like, why do you have so many accounts in so many places? What's the purpose behind that? Oh, well, I just put money there, and then I decided to go to a different bank because I moved, or, this other bank had a deal. So I opened an account at this new bank. And she just did this, like, over time, she just started collecting all these accounts. And she would just have a little bit of money in each of them, but they didn't necessarily serve a purpose. And so it was really draining on her when I had asked her about it, because she really had to think like, oh my gosh, where's all my money? I don't know. Like, it was too much to like even comprehend for her, I think. And so if you can consolidate bank accounts, and banks in general, if they don't have a specific purpose. Now, some people like to have multiple accounts for different reasons, because maybe one is a joint account with you and your spouse, and then you each maybe have your own separate accounts. Totally great. And so that probably works for you, and there's a purpose for that. Or maybe one account is for spending on a business and one is your personal account. Absolutely okay. But if you just have all the accounts randomly in a bunch of different places for no apparent reason, then maybe consolidating those into fewer Maybe not one, maybe you still need more than one, but in fewer accounts can lessen that burden. So less paperwork coming in, less things to track. And what I'll say about that too is I've heard some people talk about, well, I'm separating my stuff because in case something happens to one bank, I have money somewhere else to keep it safe. And I know now that we've just had a recent, some bank issues going on in the world, people might be fearful of that. But each account in a bank is either FDIC insured through banks or through the NCUA and credit unions are insured up to $250,000. So if you have less money sitting in your accounts, you're probably safe in keeping them in only one account. If you have more than that, then yeah, it would be a good idea to separate that money out. Other things that can be consolidated. So credit cards. How many different credit cards are you using and paying on? If it's something that you're paying on a regular basis, and it's not that you've just racked up all this debt on several different cards and you're trying to pay those off, why are you using multiple cards? And again, I've had people say, well, I have certain points on this card for this thing, and then different points on this other card for something else. And that's okay. You can do that to kind of maximize, but if you're just randomly using different cards for no apparent reason, maybe it would simplify things to stop using some. And I won't say close the ones that you're not using necessarily, because closing your accounts can impact your credit. And it does this by reducing your overall available credit. And so then your debt to credit ratio kind of gets off, which can lower your credit score. So if you just want to simplify things and you have several cards, maybe just go down to only using one at a time, and maybe rotate them. Use one, pay it off, go to the next one, use it, pay it off. And then that way, at least you're not having to juggle so many different, so many different accounts that you're paying on. Another big one that people do often is 401ks that they've changed employers and then left the 401k behind. So think about that. Do you have old accounts maybe that you left behind when you moved jobs? Something to look into. They may be invested in different things, and so there is some diversification there if you have several, but you can still a lot of times diversify within one 401k. So that might be something to look into. Again, it's just reducing the different organizations that you're going to have to worry about and deal with when it is time to retire. Just know that when you do that, there could be some fees, not always. So just look into that before trying to consolidate those. But that is a good way to reduce accounts. Next thing that I say is know where you stand with your finances. So the first thing to do is to take inventory. So again, kind of like we've talked about making that list of the accounts and account numbers, things like that. Know where your money is. Know all the assets that you have, which is not necessarily just money. It could be, things you own, your house, your cars, other valuables. But take that inventory and again, write it down in a list, put it in a safe space, which can help you in the future. And then it kind of gives you an idea. And then you have everything in one place. You don't have to keep thinking about where everything is at. And with that, you can figure out what your net worth is, which is very, a great thing to be able to use to know where you're at and where you stand financially. Getting everything down on paper, you can see all your assets, all your liabilities, and see what your net worth is. And I tell people, don't worry about this. Your net worth is not your self-worth. So even if it's not the number that you want it to be, that doesn't have to be scary. It just gives you a snapshot, a picture, so that you know where you stand right now and where you want to go. And it can also help you set goals. So, you find out what your current number is and you say, okay, I want to be at this number in a year or 2 years or 3 years. And then you can kind of plan that out and be able to make the changes necessary to get to that next number, right? Whether that's just growing your assets, reducing your liabilities, or both. And then the other thing to get a really good handle and look at your financial picture to be able to simplify and clean things up is know what's on your credit reports. This is something that not everybody does, but it's so important for people to know this, and not just checking your score. Your score is important, but actually seeing what's on the report is completely invaluable. Everybody can get 3 free credit reports a year by going to the website that I have on the screen here, which is www.annualcreditreport.com. And going on here, you can get, like I said, a free credit report from each of the 3 credit bureaus. What I advise people to do, instead of getting all 3 at one time, do one, and then 4 months later, do another one. And then 4 months later, do another one, and just keep rotating. And as you do that, what it does, basically, you can keep an eye on your credit, which will help you, make sure that there's not any fraud or anything incorrect being put on your credit report, which can affect your score. And sometimes it's not always fraudulent. Sometimes just mistakes happen. Maybe somebody has a name that's very similar to you, and so for whatever reason, it gets stuck onto your report, but that could be hurting you. So get on there, completely go through your credit report, see what it says. And then if there are problems, you can dispute that with the credit bureaus. Great thing to do, get that cleaned up. That way there's no questions about what's going on with your credit. And then as far as scores go, a lot of people I know use like Credit Karma because it's easy and it's free. And they're like, well, it doesn't affect my credit if I go on and check my credit through Credit Karma. That is all true. However, what a lot of people don't know is the scoring that is available on Credit Karma is called a Vantage score. And a Vantage score is great, but it is not the same as a FICO score. And the FICO score is actually what most creditors are using to rate you. So to determine whether or not they give you credit, they're using a FICO score. And I've only ever seen a couple of scores where the FICO and the Vantage were very close. They're usually quite a bit apart. And a lot of times the Vantage is higher than the FICO. Not always, but often from what I've seen. So it's a great idea if you've just been using the Vantage score from like your Credit Karma to actually go and get that FICO score as well. Sometimes if you have credit cards, your banks will offer that FICO score. So you can find out, like if they're giving you a free credit report, find out which score it is that they're offering to you. You can also pay a small fee when you go on to get your credit report to actually get your score. If you can get it free, of course, that's the better way to do it. But if you're not getting it any other way, maybe it's worthwhile to pay that small fee to find out. All right. So last thoughts and summaries. We're kind of ending quick here. In order to simplify and, reduce the stress around finances, cleaning things up, what we need to do is reduce our physical, virtual, and our mental clutter around our finances. So again, that means cleaning up our physical environments, sorting the paperwork, getting it filed and put where it needs to go, creating systems so that new paperwork doesn't cause, havoc in the future, taking care of the stuff we're getting online, keeping that organized. And then we can reduce the mental clutter by really consolidating and bringing our accounts down to fewer things, writing things down, having lists so that we can kind of keep things together, which also helps our loved ones. And then knowing where you stand financially, again, it lightens the load, reduces that stress, know where you're starting from. It doesn't have to be scary. Even if what you find out once you kind of pull everything together is not what you wanted to see, you have a place to start from. And that's where, if you need help making changes from that point, it can really be helpful to get somebody to walk alongside you. That could be a spouse, it could be a friend, it could be a financial counselor, clergy members. There's a lot of people who can help with finances and just really support you and help you, set goals and make positive changes in your finances. And last but not least, and I think I've said it a few times here, but finances do not have to be scary. So if they terrify you, putting some of these things into action can really help make things easier for you. So I just wanted to share that if anybody from this call books a free 30-minute consultation with me, what you'll receive, we can talk about your personal situation, but I'll also give you a free budgeting template that you can use, which is really helpful to be able to create a budget. And then we'll work together to put together a net worth statement and an analysis. So I talked about, setting up your net worth, figuring out where you are, and I can walk through and help you do that. And then you would receive those and I would give those to you after the free consultation. So how do you do that? By going to my website, which is financialframeworksllc.com. You can go on there, set up a time with me for the free 30-minute consultation, and then we will get those things to you. And then, of course, we can talk about your personal finances, and I can give you some recommendations and talk about whether or not maybe you would like to have help with your finances. Are there any questions? I guess I should look at the chat here. Let's see. Oh, okay, just stuff that you put in there, Elizabeth. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Don't be shy, folks. Feel free to enter them in the chat box, or you're more than welcome to unmute yourself.
Yeah,
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I was wondering, after all of this and after the free consult and such, what additional handholding could you offer?
Well, I do financial coaching, and I can help you through basically any kind of daily money management. So we talk about mindset and how you feel about your money, getting over, mental blocks. I help building budgets, improving your credit, getting out of debt so we can make a plan to, start paying things off, and just kind of look at your overall financial situation and anything that maybe that you're struggling with. We can make a plan, and then just ongoing coaching to kind of have that support. Because I know the thing about finances too is people don't like to talk about their finances with people who are close to them. There's a lot of shame sometimes and just embarrassment about our financial situation. So that's where a financial counselor, financial coach can really come in and be handy for people.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lorna.
Yeah, if anybody has any other questions, even maybe not pertaining to kind of organizing and cleaning up finances, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, any financial questions?
If there's a lien, I have another question. If there's a lien from, past medical issue or whatever that has happened, is that something you can assist with also?
That might be something I'd be able to help. That also might be something, depending, I'd have to know more, which I wouldn't want you to talk about on here,
Right,
but
right.
it might be the place for an attorney. But that's something that if you set up a free 30-minute consultation, we could talk about that.
Okay. And so when going to the website and doing that, is there some sort of thing we got to put in, like Marlene's participant? Nope. Or okay.
No, when you go in, there's a block that says book now, and you'll click on that, and one of the options is free 30-minute consultation. So you'll just go to that one. It won't cost you anything, and then you can find a time on my calendar when we can talk. And it's usually you'll get a Zoom link, so we will do like a Zoom consultation.
Okay. And is it you that we'll be dealing with, or do you have a team of people?
Yes, it's just me.
Okay, good.
And if you can't find anything on my schedule that works for you, email me. Again, my email is on the screen there. And, just say, hey, I can't make any of these times work, and I'll work with you to find something that will work. But I do work evenings, like one night a week normally, and then some Saturdays as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Perfect. Perfect. Let me check the Facebook Live here, see if there's any questions. There is not, but oh my goodness, you had such an amazing presentation, Jodi. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope it was helpful for people. And they're inspired now to go get their environments cleaned up.
Yes, exactly. And this information is invaluable, and having it all in one place to tune in is fantastic, and will save them time and money later.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to say goodbye to our Facebook Live friends. Thanks for tuning in, folks. And stay tuned for Thursday's class, also honoring National Cleaning Week. Take good care.
Thank you.